At the biggest stage in Apex Legends competitive, there have only ever been two teams to ever claim victory, DarkZero and TSM. So going into Split 1 playoffs in year 4 with DarkZero dominating the North American Pro League and TSM winning match point in the North American Regional Finals, many expected this streak to continue. And moving into LAN in Los Angeles, for the first 3 days, things also went rather predictably. DarkZero dominated as they always do through the group stages and the bracket stage, and TSM was getting the doubters that they always get before they finally pop off in the match point finals to win it all and prove why they're the best. But in this tournament, there was another storyline being written. A team hiding in the shadows, waiting to take the title from these two titans and become the new Apex Legends champion. So going into match point finals, where the script seemed to already be written, I correctly predicted a new champion, Reject Winnity, in 8 games.
1 or 2 bullets more, the zone pushes them towards them, and DarkZero go down to Reject. They lose one along the way.
I mean, they found the crevice, but right now they knew that they weren't going to win in their positioning because they were pinched. TSM get eliminated, and Reject Winnity clean up shop, taking game number 2 on Storm Point.
Okay. 한 명이 인지형 대왕자 지금 나이스! 자리 가만히 있어요. 위닝 포지션이야, 위닝 포지션.
Karapu's going to go wide here, put that gem down, give them something to play around. The fence is going to go down as well, just to get that perimeter up to stop those pushes coming in.
Both teams are just staying alive, and then Reject Winnity are just going to watch this unfold in front of their very eyes. Surely it's going to be the moment for APAC North here.
Sangyun gets the first knock onto a member of Serenity. C9 biding their time, waiting for their moment. As all of Reject Winnity find themselves at Red Evos. It's a massive moment for Apex. It's a huge moment for APAC North. As Reject Winnity will be your champions.
Now, I am not a psychic, and I was not making this claim to simply bet against the best. While DarkZero had shattered records in the group stages, and Fnatic looked strong taking first place in the bracket stage, for a trained eye, there was clear evidence of this team having what it takes to win it all. And in this video, I'm going to break down what I saw in this team to make the correct prediction that they would win Split 1 playoffs and finally break the cycle. So I'm Burke, talking all things Apex competitive. Subscribe if you like that kind of thing, and let's dive in. For many spectators of the esport, their first time witnessing the performance that this team was capable of was during this actual event. But for those familiar with the APAC North region, this LAN victory was not nearly as surprising. You see, Reject Winnity is a Korean team that has had rather large success in the region, placing 2nd overall in Split 1 going into playoffs and winning match point finals in their region in only 4 games.
Comes in, and here we go! RC! RC! Wins regional finals in 4 fucking games, man. They win 3 out of the 4 games for regional finals.
A feat that is not only difficult, but unheard of, especially in a region previously known for having the longest match point finals ever held at 13 games. So this team was no surprise arrival, and they had already showed that they were capable of closing it out. But let's look more specifically at their performance at Split 1 playoffs, which even more clearly highlighted their inevitable path to victory. As we discuss the different attributes that allowed them to succeed, the biggest through line between these attributes is flexibility. Firstly, the team flex drop, which means that they did not go into the tournament with pre-established POIs that they would claim and fight for. Instead, they opted to take whatever POIs were available to avoid conflict that would run the risk of potentially losing the fight and having an early death in those matches. This choice to flex drop, however, comes with its own set of risks, as choosing to land on different POIs means that you have a lot more loot paths to learn, rotation timings, you need to study more of your neighboring teams to learn how they behave, and the overall knowledge needed to be successful is just higher. This is something that we see even more pervasive now in the age of the POI draft, something that at the time was not a factor. Despite this, they were able to show consistent success across the group stages and the bracket stages. This is due to their flexibility in playstyle. Unlike some teams that decide to play hard edge, rotating late, leveling up their shields to elevate their fighting ability, and finally taking fights to secure a better position, or hard zone teams which prioritize getting to position as early as possible, they chose to play flexibly, opting to play zone whenever they had the opportunity to, but never forcing that playstyle if the ring did not allow it. When Reject does not have priority, they play edge differently than most, moving based on rotations of other teams, posturing to force teams to rotate away from them, and only taking fights when they need to, constantly looking for the best position to play. The way that this team postures both in early and late game is truly a masterclass in positioning. Reject Winnity has mastered a skill that I like to call shepherding. To discuss this skill, I want to reference specifically a game during the group stages. In this game, they had a position in a skyhook end zone that could have easily been attacked by many teams struggling to get into the zone. As the ring closes, these teams here have to rotate to one of the two buildings. And because of the time remaining and the zone on their back, they will have no choice but to fight for space as they run in. These are snakes backed into a corner. They have to lash out somewhere. Reject knows this, and they act very similarly to sheepdogs. By posturing out of their position and applying early long-range pressure, they signal to these teams that if they lash out in Reject's direction, they will die before getting a chance to fight them evenly. Because of this presence and posturing that Reject does, they are able to reduce the number of places that these cornered teams can lash out to. And in this situation, it means that these teams will be forced to fight for the only other place to go. This building here. By forcing these teams into this building, it guarantees that when the zone pulls away from this building, all the teams inside will need to fight each other, while Reject is able to sit alone on their side of the map. This shepherding of other teams is a fantastic skill for teams holding a priority position because it allows teams to limit the options of their opponents. And Reject is fantastic at it, using the skill again on Stormpoint to secure match point as they hold the IMC armory and force DSG to take the other side of zone and the teams from Dragon Balls to fight each other and ultimately die before getting a chance to rotate. We see this as well on their match point win when they herd teams like DSG away to be crossfired by enemy teams, which allows them to clean up and secure their side of the map. Shepherding is a skill that takes great awareness of positioning and knowledge of the options of other teams, but when it is done correctly, it can allow teams to leverage the power of other teams against them. Despite their flex playstyle, they have an astounding ability to find their way into end zone. One skill I saw them use time and time again is what I like to call needle threading. They have an amazing eye for openings on the battlefield, and when there's an opportunity to take a better position, they can almost always see it and find ways to secure it, many times without even needing to take a fight. Two of the ways I saw them do this most often were through evac towers and during ongoing fights. When rotating late due to a far pulling zone, like this game here, we see Reject utilize a survey beacon to identify an open spot in zone, which allows them to evac right through all the other teams holding the position to secure them the spot that gives them the best chance at success. They will also take better positions in endgames through similar tactics. When many teams hear their neighbors fighting late game, the instinct will be often to third party them to secure a better position and some extra KP. However, for Reject, their priority is to win the game, and they use these opportunities a little bit differently, and will only fight them if it means that end result. When a fight occurs, they see a distraction that allows them the opportunity to close the gap and secure a better position with less effort, while the teams that would prevent them from doing so are otherwise occupied. We see this many times throughout the tournament, like this game in group stages, where they use the fight that is happening in the end zone to close the gap, securing them a fantastic spot that they easily would have died rotating to otherwise. And we ultimately see this in their final match point win, when despite having a very far pull from end zone, they are able to completely circumvent teams fighting on edge and use the distraction of SSG and DarkZero fighting in the end zone to ultimately walk right up and claim the best endgame position with barely any resistance at all due to their optimal timing. Learning how to utilize the line of sight of enemy teams, ongoing fights, survey beacon information, and rotational tools to secure you optimal positions with minimal resistance is a skill that can take years to hone, and few have it as perfect as Reject Winnity. So it is no surprise that when they had the opportunity to lock down the match point win, they had no problem identifying it and achieving that goal. The underlying characteristic that encapsulates their tactics of needle threading and shepherding is their aversion to fights. Reject is by no means scared to fight. They have very mechanically gifted players that each can hold their own, but this is not how they identify success. Success is winning match point. Reject takes only the fights they need to take, the fights that secure them the best position, fights that give them the best chance at securing a win, or fights that ultimately give them more points if there is no ability to secure a game-winning spot. There are absolutely times where you will see this team get a large amount of kills, but these kills come from necessity, not outsized aggression. Now, one of the reasons reasons that they had so many doubters is one of the same reasons I saw their capability for success, and that's their input. For a long time, Controller has dominated in close range fights, and the general consensus in the competitive scene was that you could not win without at least having 1 or 2 Controller players on the team. And for a long time, results had emulated that conclusion, with DarkZero and TSM both having at least 1 Controller player throughout their LAN wins, and more often having 2. Despite this sentiment, Reject Winnity was playing with 3 mouse and keyboard players, which had usually meant that their chance of winning a close range engagement was reduced significantly against the competition. This time, however, things were different. SMGs had been nerfed, there was a more favorable legend meta, and most importantly, this time they were prepared. APAC North has always been a traditionally mouse and keyboard region. This meant that the opportunities for the top players in the region to compete against skilled Controller players have been limited to mostly the international tournaments. And with scrims having unfavorable ping for these teams as well, this meant that even the international practice matches provided little opportunity for them to understand what playing against a LAN caliber Controller player truly entailed. And most importantly, it gave them little time to work out how they can counter it. This time, however, they had that time. With some scrims being held in their region servers, more international tournaments under their belt, and more Controller players entering their region, they now finally were able to strategize and practice fighting up close against ALGS. With these new circumstances, they were able to identify and practice a few key strategies for successfully beating Controller players. First, they only took fights they needed to take. Reducing the number of close range engagements simply increased their odds of getting into an endgame, a place where positioning outshines fighting skill in most situations. Since at face value, Controller players will win close range engagements, avoiding them was the most obvious first step when available. But following only this plan can only get you so far. Eventually, you need to be able to take these fights too, and they need to win them. To win a fight against aim assist, they had one core strategy: always avoid 1v1s. In a straight 1v1 up close, a Controller player is at a distinct advantage with aim assist. The strength of mouse and keyboard is in long range oppression, and in a close range fight, it is the ability to abuse positioning with elevated movement. Neither of these shine when you are standing in front of the other player trying to simply out-aim them. Knowing this, they play distinctly to isolate players, utilizing team firing. This works especially well due to their honed-in third-party timing. But even in 3v3s, by positioning themselves to all shoot one person at a time, they can reduce the fight to 3 versus 1, and then 3 versus 2. Doing so avoids the likelihood of having to fight those disadvantageous 1v1s while capitalizing on the benefit of advanced movement for positioning. Their selection of legends also played a big role in their tournament win. Reject chose during playoffs to play the meta legends of Bangalore and Bloodhound. Bangalore meant that they had a legend for safe rotations, and their smoke allowed them to eliminate aim assist in closer range fights, while the selection of Bloodhound meant that having a mechanically gifted M&K fragger would be able to shine inside of that smoke, while also giving them the knowledge through a scan and survey beacons to make needle threading plays. The last legend they opted to play, however, was not the meta Caustic, which was being played by most teams in the tournament, but rather they chose to play Wattson. Wattson was an unusual pick, but one that was heavily underrated. With the introduction of the perk system in Season 20, Wattson saw significant buffs that were overshadowed by the persistence of Caustic in the meta, which did not give her the room to truly shine. Reject, however, saw this potential and opted to forego the meta option to choose the legend that they saw the clearest path to success. In a lobby where most teams are running Bangalore and Caustic, a Wattson is a very good selection. This is because Wattson's pylon, along with the ability to regenerate your shields and provide free arc stars for late game pressure, also has the ability to deny most of the utility of the opposing teams. The biggest threats to a good position in this meta are offensive Bangalore smokes and ultimates that provide cover for the team pushing you, and offensive Caustic ults and grenades, which provide the initial damage in a fight. With a Wattson gen, none of these have any effect. This means that by playing Wattson, Reject would have a much easier time avoiding aggressors in end zones that would be looking to take their better position. While not having a Caustic means that their ability to win a fight when they are the aggressor is not nearly as good, their playstyle and their ability to thread the needle to secure better positions in end zones means that this advantage isn't nearly as powerful for them as being able to hold a good position against aggressive teams. We see this truly shine in Game 2 of the winners bracket here, when the Wattson pylon allows Reject to take and securely hold the best position in the game, forcing every team to fight around them while they pick up kills and ultimately secure the win. And then we finally see this in the match point finals as well, when they use the Watson gen to secure the best position, and then again to ultimately block the utility from Cloud9 to win the final fight to win the game.
여기 있다. 나 이거 우리가 링크 할까? 우리가 링크 할까? 나 한번 볼게. 거의 될것 같은데? 될 듯? 괜찮았어. 오른쪽 양쪽.
Karapu's going to go wide here, put that gen down, give them something to play around. The fence is going to go down as well, just to get that perimeter up to stop those pushes coming in.
Both teams are just staying alive. I mean, Reject Winnity are just going to watch this unfold
There's
in
the
front of
bang
their very eyes. Surely it's going to be the moment for APAC North here.
Sangyun gets the first knock onto a member of Serenity. C9 biding their time, waiting for their moment. As all of Reject Winnity find themselves at Red Evos. It's a massive moment for Apex. It's a huge moment for APAC North. As Reject Winnity will be your champions.
When all of these factors come together, you get a team that showed with consistency and skill that they have what it takes to secure themselves the victory that changed the landscape of Apex Legends forever. So if you like this video, make sure you check out the Meta, my Apex Legends competitive podcast here, and I'll see you in the next one.